Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about the area and perimeter of squares and rectangles. So I will also have another video that talks about the area of parallelograms as well. But essentially they're all sort of similar. We can see here that in the family of quadrilaterals that there is a direct relationship between a parallelogram and a rectangle and a rhombus and even the square. Each, as we go down this flow chart, they have the same characteristics, but the characteristics become more precise as you go down this flow chart. So the way that you find the area and the way that you find the perimeter of all of these quadrilaterals in the parallelogram family is very similar. So, but I will talk more about parallelograms in another video. For this video, I'm concentrating on just squares and rectangles. Let's start with rectangles first. So here is a generic picture of a rectangle. Okay, so this is the rectangle. And you can see that we have the length and the width labeled with an L and a W. And we should know from what you have previously learned in math that the area of a rectangle is equal to the length times the width. So we can talk about where that formula comes from, but that will be for another lesson. So let's just talk about what the formula is and how we can use it. So this is what the formula is. So this is our formula for the area of a rectangle. Now, how do we use that formula? The way that we use that formula is, well, here we have a picture. Now you can see they don't label all four sides. That's because we know the characteristic of a rectangle is that we have congruence, opposite sides are congruent. Here and here. So we don't need to label all four sides. And essentially with the rectangle, all you need is a length and a width. So this length is 3.7, and this side is going to be the width, 10.5. So when we go to find the area of this rectangle, it's going to be equal to the length, which is 3.7, times the width, which is 10.5. Okay, and then you would obviously then calculate those on the calculator here. 3.7 times 10.5, 10.5, and I get 38.85. And depending on how they want you to round it, we're going to go to the hundredths place here, so I am going to have it as the area is, what was it, 38.85. Now when we go to label our answer, since our sides are labeled with kilometers, we want to label our answer as well. What you have to remember here is what we are multiplying here is we're multiplying a kilometer length times another kilometer length. So just like if you had x times x, you would simplify that to x squared. So that means when you're doing area, it's units, times units. So when you do area, it's units squared. So whatever the unit of measure is, you will just write that unit of measure, like kilometers, and then put squared. And that would be your area. Now, if you wanted to find the perimeter, now remember, a perimeter is the length of all the sides of the whole entire object, right? But remember, we have four sides here. So when we go to find perimeter, we have to take into account that this side is also 10.5, and this side is also 3.7 because opposite sides in a rectangle are congruent. So for the perimeter, you're going to add all four sides. So what you're going to do here is you're going to add all four sides. And you can do that a couple different ways. You could just do 3.7 plus 3.7 plus 10.5 plus 10.5, and add them all together, right? The other way you can think of it is you have two of these, so you could do 2 times 3.7 plus 2 times 10.5, which is often the way that the perimeter formula is given to you. Oftentimes the perimeter formula is given to us as, and I'll write that up here, perimeter is 2 times the length, or 2L, plus 2 times the width, 2W. So that is for perimeter. Or you can just add all four sides. It really doesn't matter which way you look at it. So either way you do this problem, you're going to go to your calculator and you are going to do 3.7 times 2, which is 7.4. And then you're going to do 10.5. Sorry, 10.5, if I could do this correctly, times 2 is 21. And then you're going to add those together, which this you could definitely finish by adding it in your head. So 28.4. Now for the units of measure on this, you're just doing kilometers plus kilometers plus kilometers plus kilometers. And if you think about when you add x's with x's, you still have x's. So when you have units of measure plus units of measure, they don't get squared. It's just that unit of measures. It's 28.4 kilometers. Think of it this way. If you were driving around that rectangle, let's say this was some sort of racetrack or streets, right? If you said, I started here and I went down, you went down, and then I went left, and then I went right, and then I went right. How far have you gone? Well, I've gone 28.4 kilometers. So you can think of it that way when thinking about the units of measure there. So that's rectangles. Now a square is done the same exact way. The only difference here is that with the square, all the sides are the same length. So when you go to find the area of a square, right, it's still length times width. That's essentially what it is. The difference here is that that length and that width, right? So this is L, this is W if you're looking at the last picture, they're the same. All of these are congruent. They're all the same because it's a square. So really what you can do here is you can think about it as, since the length and the width are the same, sometimes they just call it the side, or they might just call it L. They might say they're both the length, or they might say here they labeled them as S. Well, if you have S times S, length times width, really what you have there is you have that length squared. So there's two ways that you can think of the area of a square. You can think of it just like you think of the rectangle as length times width, or you can think of it as the side length squared. So two different ways to think about it. When it comes to the perimeter of a square, well, if this is length and width, you can still think of it as 2L plus 2W. But again, these lengths are the same. So let's call them both S. They're both the same. Let's say they're side length S. And this is also side length S. Well, look what that is. That is just 4 times the side length of S. So again, two ways to think about perimeter. You can think about it just like you think about the perimeter of a rectangle, or you can think of it as 4 times S. What's nice about thinking about it this second way is that if you know it's a square and you're presented with a problem like you see down below, it does make this a lot easier to do. Sometimes people will even write it at the perimeter as 4 times the length. So it's, again, another way to think about it, right? It's the same thing, just thinking about it a different way. So let's look at this example here. In this example here, it says find the perimeter of a square. so perimeter, that's what we're finding, of a square, it's important to know, with an area of 361 square feet. So what they've given you here is they've given you the area. Now we know that the area of a square is the length or the side length squared, right? So if you want to use S, you can. You can also use L. I'm just going to go ahead and use S for side length. You could also use X, right? Now, we don't know what that side length is, but we do know the area. We know that the area is 361. So in place of the area, I'm going to put 361, and that's going to equal some side length squared. Well, the way that we undo a squared is we square root it. So I'm going to square root each one of these, and what that's going to give me is it's going to give me the length of S. So again, on your calculator, you do 361, square root that, and you get 19. Oh, it's actually a perfect square. Look at that. So you get a side length of 19. Now, why did we need to know the side length? Right? This is not our answer. Why did we need to know that? We needed to know that so we can find the area. So you're going to use this to find perimeter. We're going to use this to find the perimeter. So now we know we have this square, right? The area was 361. That was the area, right? Feet squared. We didn't know the side length before, but now we know it. We know the side length is 19. In a square, all the sides are exactly the same length. So that means we have 4 sides with the length of 19. So the perimeter is going to be 4 times 19. So the perimeter of this square, 19 times 4, is 76. And our units of measure is feet, so it's 76 feet. And that is the perimeter. So I hope this helps you a little bit with finding the area of a perimeter, an area and perimeter of a square and a rectangle. Watch some of my other videos to see how you find the area and the perimeter of other polygons. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel.